Hi, I'm Stephanie Haynes, Arts Education and Accessibility Program Manager at the Indiana Arts Commission. We're celebrating Arts and Education Week this week, and one of the big buzzwords in arts education right now is SEL, Social and Emotional Learning. And I wanted to explore what SEL really means and how the arts can support positive SEL outcomes for students. I've invited our friend Lacey Bohlen from the Indiana Department of Education to tell us more about SEL. Lacey Bohlen is the Title IV Grant Specialist at the IDOE. Title IV is a federal education program that funds efforts in schools to offer well-rounded education for students. And this includes the arts, so we love it. Lacey also works nationally on the arts and Title IV through CDAY, the State Education Agency Directors of Arts Education Association. I could see why they use their acronym. Lacey also brings with her the experience of several years of teaching in high school age in Indianapolis. So needless to say, we're so pleased to have Lacey here today to talk about SEL and the arts. Hi, Lacey, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So let's just start with the basics. Can you explain what is SEL and how does it impact students?
Sure. So SEL is, as you mentioned, short for social emotional learning, and it's what's previously been referred to as the soft skills. But as we have kind of started to dive deeper into social emotional learning, we've realized that they're not soft skills at all. They are essential skills. The state of Indiana has done a lot of work in promoting social emotional learning and making it more available to the schools. And we have established 7 core competencies that kind of summarize social emotional learning. And that's mindset, collaboration, connection, regulation, sensory motor integration, insight, and critical thinking. So all of those combined create our competencies. You get a lot of the kind of buzzwords, as you were mentioning, from social emotional learning. We hear words like resiliency, building resiliency, trauma-informed care, and all of those hot topics that people are really talking about now that are becoming the center stone for education.
And how do schools use SEL or implement SEL widely in the schools?
Great question. So there is a wide variety of ways that you can implement SEL, starting from things like positive behavior, PBIS, where there's incentives, where students are encouraged to make the right choice, and just really that positive reinforcement, positive redirection, to things like regulation spaces, where there are spaces that are created for students to go and really just re-regulate, to take that time to identify their feelings, to work through those feelings, and then to be able to proceed and have a normal day without having a disruptive outburst. So it's really meeting the emotional needs of students. Then there are larger scale things where you might have counselors involved, you might have weekly lessons. There's just such a broad array, and we've seen it funded so many different ways through Title IV. It's hard to narrow it down to just a couple things, but I'd say that those are the most common things that I see.
Great. And what are some ways that you have seen SEL and the arts connected?
Yeah, so this is my favorite question because I just feel so strongly that the arts and SEL have just such a fluid connection. It's so naturally just, they're there. Many times in social emotional learning, you'll see creative strategies utilized to really develop social emotional learning, whether it's insight, where you're really digging into those feelings and understanding those feelings and then, expressing them through creative means. Or we also see the reverse, where we have the arts that are really digging into social emotional learning. So many different platforms in so many different ways. You have sensory motor integration that can easily be aligned with theater, easily be aligned with music. And then, critical thinking. One of the key parts of all of the art lessons that I taught was the end where we have the critique. And we not only are able to provide constructive criticism, but you're also able to accept constructive criticism. And that's just a life skill that you need. So, you know, the alignment between the arts and SEL is so rich and so deep, and there are so many different ways in which they connect. You know, I could go on about that for hours, but yeah.
That's great. And one of my favorites is also collaboration for ensemble-based theater, music, things like that, choir.
Yes, yes.
So you're working on a framework and some support materials that'll really show how the arts and SEL overlap, how they can support each other, how they work together really well. Can you tell us more about that framework, how you're developing?
Yes, so I'm extremely excited to be working on this, and it's been a passion project for some time for me. I've had the amazing opportunity to work with Dr. Oliver. Dr. Oliver is the person who created, adopted, and redirected the SEL competencies for the state of Indiana. So she obviously has brought this incredible depth of knowledge of social emotional learning. And what she did is she took the social emotional learning competencies and then she broke them down by indicator. So a very, very, very thorough look into social emotional learning. What happened next is that she took those indicators and aligned them with the art anchor standards. So now you can see that alignment between social emotional learning and the arts, and it becomes very, very, very clear. They're broken down by grade level. So you have, you know, each competency has elementary school, middle school, high school, and then there are some example strategies on the side. So Dr. Oliver and I have really been digging deep into these ideas and these concepts, and we're hoping to really build upon this. The document that we've currently created is aimed for general educators who want to get into social emotional learning and want to get into the arts without trying to take on the depth that art can be. So where we're going to build from there is to build some activities because, you know, a big portion of this are those strategies and the activities that relate deeper to the arts, where you get that rich arts experience, where you're really just digging deep into the arts. And then you have that strong social emotional competency as well that's built in. So those are our next steps, but we're currently hard at work finishing this first, we'll say, tier that we're releasing, and going from there. But it has been an amazing experience, and just seeing, you know, I've always had those ideas in the back of my mind. I know that this lines up. I know that this is a thing, and seeing it actually written out and seeing, you know, evidence. I mean, she has pulled up some amazing evidence of art really showing impact on regulation, self-esteem, ability to retain information, ability to listen. All of those things that we're trying so hard to get in school can be done through the arts and social emotional learning.
Yeah, that's great. And what I'm excited about for the arts organizations that I work with at the Arts Commission is that they're going to be able to say, well, here's what we do in dance, and then just go right over and say, oh, here's the social emotional connections. And yeah, that makes sense. And they can easily show a school, a teacher, whoever they want to communicate with, here's your language, SEL, and here's my language, dance, and here's where they overlap. And I think that will be really useful.
I agree. I fully agree. And just seeing, like, being able to visualize it and see it on paper is so incredible.
Yeah. Where can people go to learn more about SEL, the terminology, the techniques? Where would you direct people who wanted to learn more?
Great. So we have a social emotional behavioral wellness team at the Department of Education, and they are amazing. Christy Berger leads the team, and they're constantly coming out with new information and materials. Schools can basically start a social emotional learning program from their website. The website is doe.in.gov/SEBW. For social emotional behavior wellness. But that is, I mean, I direct everybody there. It is such a wealth of information. There's also the Castle, the Castle website that you can go to that is a much larger example. But if you wanted Indiana specific things and some of the things that we're doing, our social emotional website that the DOE has is amazing.
That's great. And we will add some links to those resources in the description of this video. And I just want to say thank you, Lacey, for shedding a little light on what SEL, social emotional learning, is all about. And if anyone wants to ask questions, I know Lacey's available. You can find her through the Department of Education website, and you can reach me through the Indiana Arts Commission. So thanks so much.
Thank you.